Ani bozo, mashkadewash bashiki kwendish nakaz, mang do dem. Wikwam kosing don jaba, endayate nibi eyaba akwang, also known as Dusheni. De ben dagos bising, nengach bibamsesh kakmikwing. I am a child of a survivor that went to day school. I am a wife of a survivor that went to day school. I am a mother of 3 children of the survivor that went to day school. Was a daughter-in-law of a survivor that went to school. I was a sister-in-law of a survivor that went to school. And I am a sibling of my older sister that went to day school. So I enjoy talking about the effects of being a survivor, how we have been affected, and how we have learned to love our people that were affected by survivors. And it has made it more easier for me to understand their traumas, their characteristics that they carry. I did not know about the survivors' residential school until one of our leaders spoke about it, and that really opened up the door to conversations, not just to me, but to all of our communities, and it really brought it to the forefront that people started to talk about their experiences about residential school. I can remember my mother went to day school in Wikwemekong First Nation, and I believe she completed to grade 8. She probably was 16 when she started her own family. So she certainly was affected by the effects of residential school. My oldest sister went to residential school, whereas the rest of my siblings did not. And she has her own behaviors that she carried through into her adult life and her relationships with her community within our family. My husband went to residential school. His 2 sisters went to residential school. His mother went to residential school. So there is another effect and understanding of experiencing residential school. And I have heard many stories from people that went to residential schools, their memories, their realization, what they had seen was indeed true when they heard stories of other students that went to the school during their time. So there's a lot of stories to be shared. There's a lot of trauma to be realized. There's a lot of understanding of themselves to be realized. And for my part, having learned residential school, I started to recognize their habits, their characteristics, their beliefs. So my love became more unconditional. I accepted them for what they were. I learned to support them. I learned not to be judgmental. I learned not to be angry at them. I learned to walk with them. I learned to walk ahead of them and perhaps walk behind them as they shared their experiences with me. And this is so important. And I can go back to my mother reaching over to her to hug her. And that was a difficult concept for her to embrace because she automatically became defensive because of the corporal punishment that she would have endured at residential school. So she was not accustomed to being shown any affection, let alone receiving a hug from another person. And then I remember people that went to a residential school, they lost their voice because they were not allowed to question anything. They were just had to do what they were told or be punished if they didn't behave. So they were shy to advocate for themselves. They became intimidated when they were in the company of persons of authority, be it in the company of a priest, be it in the company of a doctor, be it in the company of a police officer. They became intimidated, so they were not very well spoken to communicate what it is that they needed. They were always in that relationship of being told what to do. Listen to what you do. Don't question what we do. Everything that we say is for your good. So that is what I saw. And I am finding that we are becoming better advocates for ourselves after understanding what our people went through. And I see the addictions that have come out of suffering under residential school, self-medicating to nurture that injured child that was within you. I have been told that the children that came out of residential school came out as damaged goods. When they returned to their communities, they weren't allowed to talk about the trauma that they endured. The belief at that time was, what happened is happened. We don't deal with it. We moved on. But our residential survivors needed to share that so they can unload their burdens and be able to move on and maybe perhaps be told, it's okay, you survived, you are still loved. And it is also my understanding that many of the students that went there, it's very hard for them to believe in God, our Creator, the great mystery. And they have said, how could God have allowed these awful things to be done to me? And my answer was, it wasn't God, it was the free will of the person that did those things to the students. Did it help them move on? I sure hope so. Our men are not able to talk about their experiences at school because they are expected to be stoic. Boys are expected to be brave and strong, and they carry this into their childhood when really there's still such an injured child within them. And the girls carry their own story of how they were hurt, what they witnessed over there, how they were punished for speaking their language. So I'm very glad that I have learned to give them the unconditional love to accept. And for myself, I have been able to forgive what happened to my oldest sister at residential school. Yes, I was very angry for a while, but to able to forgive that happened, to learn our history, it allowed me to move on, to understand the other students that are there, and they're still very much amongst us. And many people have come and shared their story with me when I see them in town, because as fellow Anishinaabe people, we gravitate to each other, and there's always that willingness to be heard. There's always that want to share our story. And it's a beautiful thing when we can listen to someone's story and we validate their being. And part of this too is learning our culture, learning our language, learning our customs, our traditions, our ceremonies, our beautiful songs. This is all about reclaiming who we were because we were greatly interrupted. I do not like to use the term colonization because a lot of people have told me I am so tired of that term colonization, colonialism. So I tend to say our lives were interrupted. And so I continue to be with the people, to pray for the people. I believe I am an ambassador to share the goodness of what we have. And I always tell the people we have such important skills that the rest of Canada have yet to recognize. We know the geography, we know the lands, the animals, the waterways, the medicinal plants that grow here. Our ancestors were in a good place. They took care of each other. We took care of the whole community. We were not left to survive on our own. And we are not meant to survive on our own. We are meant to help each other. And this is what I want to share with all of the people who are affected by they call it intergenerational trauma. And I believe that we have a blood memory. I have seen people who carry an anger. They don't realize what they are angry about, but they carry it. And I have seen it when they have been arrested and then they started to talk about their grandfather teachings. So there is very much a connection there, and there is a better understanding once you start to learn about those 7 grandfather teachings, what our ancestors went through. And I always say we carry the strength of our ancestors and their stamina. Without them, we would not be here today. And I want to be part of that continuance, that we are going to move forward in the future and teach the language to our children. And I must say, my youngest granddaughter, when she was born, I was there. The hospital was very accommodating when I said, I want her to hear the language from me when she's born. And I must say, she is picking up the words that I share with her. And I encourage others, pick up your language, even if it's one word at a time. I have walked on Mother Earth 67 years, and I am still learning my language. How I spoke as a child, every year it has changed. My fluency keeps adding on to my, I guess you can call it competency. How we speak our language. Miigwech.